If you're anything like me, going to the dentist is a less than ideal way to spend your time. And because I'm not the only one who feels this way, I've noticed that most dentist offices fill their walls with fun looking and supposedly helpful messages that distract from the procedure that you're about to endure. But I've also realized that if you take the time to study these slogans on the wall, you'll notice that even though you are reading words, they aren't really saying much of anything. I'm Matthew Murphy, and this is Herald from the North. The more time that you spend learning about a topic, the more difficult it becomes to give a succinct answer when you're trying to describe it. Almost every definition or explanation fails to capture topics in their entirety, so people have to make certain assumptions when they're trying to wrap their minds around it. The best way to avoid these assumptions is to discuss the topic in depth so that you can clarify precisely what you mean. Unfortunately, people's attention spans are oftentimes fickle and prevent them from digesting long, drawn out discussions, so they look for a quick and easy description that they think will suffice. But most of the time, the slogans that people use are at the very least unhelpful, if not detrimental. People treat them as though they provide all of the insight needed for a topic, when in reality, the assumptions that come with a slogan often lead people to poor conclusions. For instance, I recently encountered a poster with a saying by a Chinese philosopher that stated, quote, "If you're depressed, you're living in the past. If you're anxious, you're living in the future. If you're at peace, you're living in the present." And at first glance, everything seems fine. It's generally hopeful, and it gives what it believes to be a helpful guide to living, and it's stated simply enough that it sounds vaguely inspirational. But when you think about the content for more than a couple seconds and you try to apply it to life, the message is nonsense. Let's say, for example, someone was to lose their job, be abandoned by their spouse, and be unable to put food on the table. Would you walk up to that person and say, "Stop living in the past, live in the now"? Hopefully not. The things that are making this person sad may have happened in the past, but that doesn't make their current hungry, lonely, penniless existence any more cheery. And the claim that focusing on the future can only bring anxiety is absurd as well. You can also find hope in the future, whether it be through a career opportunity, a potential relationship, a chance to move somewhere exciting and have new experiences, or even just through your resolve to work hard and improve your life. In any such case, the future may be the only thing that's giving the person hope. And finally, you can find peace in more than just the present. If your car were to break down, you would be far more calm and collected if you've had this experience before than if it were your first time. You would feel at peace because of your past experiences, not because of anything that's occurring now. I've spent a lot of time on this particular saying, but it's far from the only example like this. There are quotes like, "If you look at what you don't have in life, you'll never have enough" by Oprah Winfrey, or "The question isn't who's going to let me, it's who's going to stop me" by Ayn Rand, or even "If you can dream it, you can do it," which is usually attributed to Walt Disney. All of these phrases sound vaguely thoughtful and punchy, but they don't really provide anything of substance. There are plenty of times that you should look at what you don't have, particularly if it's due to some failing on your part that needs to be adjusted. The Ayn Rand quote tries to sound combative and confident without realizing that asking, "Are you going to let me?" and "Are you going to stop me?" is the same question. And very obviously, there are in fact things one could dream of that they could not do. Now, some might say I'm being unreasonable, and that the intended meaning behind these axioms is different than what the quote actually says, so can't they still serve some purpose? And the answer is no, obviously not. When you're searching for inspiration on the internet, it's not the intention behind the quote that people read, it's the quote. I wish I could believe that the majority of the people who read these quotes would extrapolate the intended meaning from the lives of the people who said them, but the odds of that are fairly low. Criticizing these slogans and quotes might seem trivial at first, but they're a microcosm of a more harmful and detrimental mindset. How many people have aggressively rallied behind slogans like "Love is love" or "Believe women" without taking a second to think about what these slogans are actually saying? "Love is love" implies that all love is the same, but we would all agree that there are things that people should not love. If all love is the same, we couldn't justify saying that it's good to love your spouse, but bad to love murder. All someone would have to do is claim to love whatever behavior they want to engage in, and no one would have the moral right to stop them. And the slogan "Believe women" is incredibly unhelpful. Obviously, you cannot believe all women 100% of the time, any more than you should believe all men 100% of the time. Both are capable of lies and manipulation for personal gain, but A mantra like this implies that women don't need to be questioned when they're making a claim, no matter how outlandish. There's no need to investigate or look for evidence to back up their claims. We should just believe them. And if you dare to criticize these ideas and their logical incoherence, you'll be shouted down as a bigot and a sexist, and your voice will be silenced. These slogans don't stand up to scrutiny, so anyone who supports them has to make sure that criticisms of their position don't see the light of day. This makes critical thinking enemy number one, and those who practice it prime targets. A few months ago, a teacher named Warren Smith was asked by one of his students for his thoughts on what the student called JK Rowling's bigoted opinions. But instead of giving his opinion, Smith decided to help demonstrate how to think critically about the situation. And if you haven't seen that video, I included a link to it in the description. This video was then posted online and was pretty positively received and shared by people who were pleased with the way that he went about the conversation. But critical thinking is forbidden, so inevitably, just over a week ago, that very same teacher was fired from his teaching position. And in a follow-up video, he shared about what happened, and so here's some of that.
So it happened yesterday. I was fired from my full-time teaching position. This could have been done. I understand if you disagree with me voicing opinions on YouTube or feeling like it's easier just to get rid of that. I understand. To get rid of a teacher like that. And I accept that. Sometimes how you do it, though, is important. And I think this could have been done without just taking my computer and losing a book that I've been writing for 2 years. Multiple things I've been writing for 2 years, all the data from 2 years, my digital life, just...
Some people say that he was fired for his opinions, which is probably partially true since he's posted other thoughts online, but in the video that went viral, he didn't share his opinion. All he did was demonstrate how to dismantle a slogan or an argument through critical reasoning, which is far more damaging to the student's claim about Rowling than Smith's opinion ever could be. If his description of the way they fired him is accurate, which seems to me a reasonable assumption, the best explanation for the aggressive way the school handled his release is the fact that critical thinking led the student to a conclusion that the school didn't want. These slogans and faux inspirational sayings are worthless, and the people who perpetuate them need to be challenged. They sound smart, so people will use their words as a substitute for actual advice. But no advice, good or bad, is worth having unless people can think critically to apply it. I've described this in depth not just because posting platitudes like this is an annoying practice, though that's definitely true, but because it has larger consequences for our society. If people take these sayings at face value, they build their lives on the tenuous ground of assumptions, thinking it'll support them, and later find that it's unreliable, like the man who builds his house on the sand. We have to expunge meaningless sayings and promote critical thinking so we can take what we learn and apply it to our lives. It'll definitely take more work than the soulless niceties of the dentist's office, but in the end, it'll be far better for us all. That's all I have for today. Thanks for listening, and until next time, farewell. Thanks for listening. Remember to use the links in the description to follow me on social media and wherever you get your podcasts so that you never miss an episode.